Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you with another video. All right, so here's one of my favorite things to do, which is breaking down series before they begin. And this one just so happens to be the NBA Finals, the pinnacle of what the NBA is all about. Now, I will admit, I am going off of sheer memory, and for something so big, I probably should have did a little more brushing up on my memory. But if you guys have been following me, you know I've been following the entire playoffs, every single game I've covered. I'm not gonna say I laid eyes on every single second of every single game because that would not be true. But I covered them. I watched the games. I watched the highlights. I watched the commentary around each game, and I made videos on all of them. So I've gotten enough information to kind of know the paths that these teams have taken, the rosters that they're running, some of the weaknesses that they've had. The question is, in real time right now, am I going to remember all of that? That's always the task for me. It's my memory. But this is what we know. The Boston Celtics are the best defensive team in the entire NBA at this point, if you ask me. The Golden State Warriors are the best offensive team in the entire league right now. The Boston Celtics are very capable of scoring points, as we've seen them do in the regular season, even though they go on some serious scoring droughts and issues of that nature at times. And the Golden State Warriors are very capable of playing defense, as they've been known to lock people down and have crashed the glass in the last several series that has impressed us in ways that make you think that, wow, they can overachieve in that particular category at their will. They found pieces on both sides, players that they found they can use in these playoffs that maybe they didn't rely upon as much, or guys who may have struggled at the beginning of these playoffs who have now found a rhythm for themselves. And you also got injuries, that are just naturally going to come at this time of the year for just about every player playing. The question I have at this point for the Boston Celtics is, are you going to be able to keep up with the scoring of the Golden State Warriors? That is my question for them. And my question for the Warriors is, are you prepared for a defensive team like the Celtics that don't take plays off? Because the Golden State Warriors have had a path that has kind of allowed them a little more room than maybe I'd say I put it like this. I think the Boston Celtics path has been a little bit tougher to say. I'm not going to say the least, but I think they've had a little tougher of a schedule through these playoffs. The Golden State Warriors dealt with the Denver Nuggets. They knocked them off in 5. The Nuggets didn't really give them much of a fight because the Nuggets were running players that they didn't really want to run in those roles because of injury, as we know. Then you also look at the the fact that they moved on and played the Memphis Grizzlies, who was a team that that gave them a lot of trouble, but ended up not having John Morant down the stretch. There was a key game in that series, Game 5, where they got blown out by almost 50 points. That really puts a question mark in my mind about them as it pertains to what they're going to do in this series. Losing 2 closeout games in this series, the Golden State Warriors have. When they had a chance to knock off the Dallas Mavericks, of whom they ended up seeing in that 3rd round. That gave them probably more trouble than we would expect. When I look at that situation, they knocked those Mavs off in 5. The one thing I said about the Golden State Warriors is they just turn the ball over a little more than you would want them to, just functionally, naturally. And that right there is something that plays right into the Boston Celtics' hands, because they're definitely going to force turnovers. The Boston Celtics have shown me that they can force themselves into situations where they can score the ball against really good defenses, because the Miami Heat provided just that, and they were able to find ways of scoring buckets. When you talk about the Celtics' path, the Celtics obviously ran into the Nets first, knocked them off really fast. That wasn't much trouble because the Nets were just depleted. Their roster, as we know, just had its issues, and they were able to effectively knock off KD and shut him down in ways that are just simply historic. They moved on from there and saw the Milwaukee Bucks, who of course had a situation where Middleton had gotten hurt, and you know, but nevertheless, the Bucks were the champs, and they were able to withstand what the Bucks threw at them, which was a whole lot of size, forcing them to shoot the three ball in order to win the series, and they found a way to do that. Guys like Grant Williams just simply got the buckets necessary. Their defense remained, and the toughness of their stars, and I include the Williams guys and Marcus Smart in that category of stars, to be honest with you. I don't exclude them. That is a team that almost reminds me of the Detroit Pistons that beat my Lakers back in the early 2000s. They just play defense, man. They come together to play defense, and they do enough together to offensively put points on the board. A guy like Jason Tatum winning the Eastern Conference Larry Bird MVP award, first inaugural one, very well deserved. Just found ways of doing what he needed to do to win games in the series after they knocked the Bucks off. They ran into, of course, this Heat team. They gave him all they could handle in 7 games, where he then won that trophy. But what I'm saying to you is Jason Tatum, throughout this series, even though he's had his shooting struggles, has found other ways to get himself involved in games, passing the rock, playing defense, rebounding the ball, and his shooting woes have since been just shaken off. You know, he hasn't had a bad game in about 3 or 4 games in terms of his shooting. And his passing is just, every game against a very, very tough defense has just gotten better and better and better. So at this point, I look at the Boston Celtics, keep wanting to say the Miami Heat, the Boston Celtics, and I say they have already seen, in my opinion, a very, very, very comparable defense to the Golden State Warriors. What they haven't seen is anything that compares to the Warriors offensively. So that's going to be a challenge to see if they can keep up with that team scoring, and to see if their defense is going to be good enough to overcome all that the Golden State Warriors are going to be throwing at them. Now, as I look at the Warriors, I say, okay, your path is that of a team that's run into some good defenses. You know, when you look at these 3 teams that they ran into, in Denver was solid defensively, not known for locking you down, but they're okay. Didn't give them any trouble. And then Memphis, of course, they're a fantastic defensive team, but they were out without their horses, and in some ways without Ja Morant rather, and they just were a young team. They couldn't really keep up with the Golden State Warriors. They were able to beat them with their intellect and their rebounding. And of course, as we move on, realize the Dallas Mavericks were a team that just didn't have all they needed, but overachieved in these playoffs. And you know that the Golden State Warriors struggled against these teams that they probably should have knocked off without, in sweep fashion. But the thing about the Warriors this season is they kind of play with their food, man. And that's my concern about them. When you're going up against a team like the Boston Celtics that have gone through real Eastern Conference wars, you can't have a kind of a easygoing attitude about games or possessions or anything of the sort at this point. When you're playing this level, going up against the likes of Williams brothers, both of the Williams, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, there is no room at all for playing around and not keeping your foot on the gas. And that is my concern about this particular series when I'm assessing these 2 teams. For the Boston Celtics, I don't know if they can score with the Golden State Warriors. And the Golden State Warriors, I think the Golden State Warriors kind of laughy, loose kind of style of play could hurt them against a Boston Celtics team that really, really makes their money on the defensive end. And does all the little things and the dirty work very well. I look at guys like Draymond Green, and I've been talking about this. If you guys have been following me, I've been excited about this. Draymond Green and Al Horford, the potential of those 2 minds coming against each other in warfare for all the marbles is some of the best possible basketball for a guy like myself who likes that type of rebounding and playmaking from a big man, that kind of thing, being able to get other guys involved and stuff like that. I look at a guy like Al Horford who does the little things you need. But the thing about Al Horford is down the stretch of this past series, his legs started to go. The more defense he started to play, the less he was able to hit that three. And that three was very key in the wins that they got. So as he started to shoot poorer, it became more and more evident that the Celtics needed to make up the difference in his scoring. And that was something they were able to do effectively. So I think the Boston Celtics are a lot better when Al Horford's hitting shots from behind the arc. But I'm sure they'll play it by ear as the games go. The thing about the Boston Celtics is we understand that even though they're able to hit the three-point shot, they don't necessarily want to have to hit it. You know, if they're forced to hit it, they will hit it. But going into a shootout with the Golden State Warriors is not a good thing for the Boston Celtics. You do not want to do that. The thing about this particular series I wonder about is will Andrew Wiggins be able to effectively stop the dribble penetration of Jaylen Brown? Because I think that's an area of attack for the Celtics that they can repeatedly go to and have a lot of success if those wings can't stay in front of him. I would not put Jordan Poole on him after watching him defensively in the last series. He is not ready for that type of physicality. Jaylen Brown's going to give him a lot of punishment. I like Andrew Wiggins, and Wiggins is pretty much the guy. Obviously it would be GP2, but I don't believe his status is looking good for this series at all. So I'd imagine he's out. And you look at Otto Porter Jr. I think he'll be ready for the series, but he's a bit banged up. The rest should be good for his situation, I'd imagine. And I just look at it and I say that's the problem with the Golden State Warriors. Now their interior defense is good. You got Draymond Green, and you have Kevon Looney, who's made a name for himself in these playoffs in a very emphatic way. A free agent of whom I know is going to get some money. So at this point, I know he's going to have a great finals as well, and he's going to be very key. He and Draymond Green obviously staying healthy is end all be all. Any of those two players are not available, it's curtains for the Warriors. They can't keep up with those Boston Celtics and those bigs. We're talking about Grant Williams, Robert Williams, Al Horford, Jason Tatum. They need their bigs to be healthy. They need to be active on the glass and defensively. Now, what I did like against Luka Doncic for the Golden State Warriors was Kevon Looney switching off on Luka Doncic and being able to keep up with him, bang with him, and really effectively keep him at bay. Best defensive player against Luka Doncic was, in fact, Kevon Looney in these playoffs. I think that can translate in some ways to trying to guard some of the players that the Boston Celtics are going to be throwing at the Warriors. So that Kevon Looney's defense and his obviously great offensive rebounding is going to be key against the Boston Celtics team whose bigs tend to come and go with their rebounding. Now, that's something that I've recently learned in this series is that Grant Williams or Robert Williams, as hard as they go, you'd be surprised to see that their rebounding numbers aren't comparable to players that you would think they would be. They really don't rebound like that. They can rebound. They can have big rebounding games, but they had a game in this playoffs where they walked around with 4 rebounds between the two of them. So that right there let me know that the consistency there is not there, and that's where they could get hurt in this series. The Boston Celtics have been known to rebound well, but the Golden State Warriors have been known to out-rebound anybody and everybody in front of them. So that's going to be key. Is guys like Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, all those guys for the Celtics, they need to keep the Warriors off the glass. Otto Porter Jr. and Andrew Wiggins, obviously Draymond Green, but especially to Steph Curry, who's early in the series against the Dallas Mavericks was just pulling down boards like a madman. And that did kind of wane as the series progressed, but that's a key area for attack for the Warriors. If they can get Steph Curry back to pulling that board off of the defensive glass and initiating the offense in transition, that can be a deadly attack for the Golden State Warriors. Now, I'm looking at, obviously, you want to mention Klay Thompson. He's been a player who's kind of struggled a little bit. We know that. But he's also seen the ball fall a lot in these playoffs, and that is something that cannot be taken lightly. The thing you have to understand about Klay Thompson, I'm sure we all do, is that he's literally probably the 3rd or 4th greatest shooter to ever play the game. So that he is struggling shooting the ball is not something that you can hang your hat on. I don't care how many times you've seen him brick. You also understand that you've seen him make it. In one of these games, I do expect for him to be the hero winning a basketball game in these finals. It's going to happen. So even though I do expect him to continue to struggle from game to game here and there, You also understand that the Golden State Warriors are going to continue to give him that green light. And eventually, once he starts seeing a couple fall, it can go on forever. And of course, we got to talk about Jordan Poole because he has that same exact ability. The third splash brother, the newest splash brother. It's a pool party, man. Now, he had a quiet series against Dallas. I also know that he's nursing a elbow injury that should have healed up by now, I think, at this point. I'm ready for him to break out. I've already told you guys that I think this kid has a 35.8 assist game in his abilities, and I think that game could be coming in these finals. Now, I don't know if they're going to enable him, and empower him to do that, if the defense will obviously even give him a chance to do that, because this is the Boston Celtics. They don't, I don't take them lightly. But I'd imagine Steph Curry's going to be attacking a lot. All these other different weapons are going to be attacking. And the Boston Celtics are eventually going to have to make a decision of who they're going to let beat them. Because the Golden State Warriors have so many weapons. And unlike the Miami Heat, they have no problem scoring the basketball. And that's what concerns me about the Boston Celtics. Well, I can't use the word concern. I got to say confuses me about what it is that I saw in this series. Am I to take from the fact that the Miami Heat struggled offensively as to say that that was the Boston Celtics defense keeping them from scoring? Or am I to assume that the Miami Heat just had trouble scoring regardless, because it seemed that they were against any and everybody no matter what, especially if you remove Tyler Hero. So for me, I looked at the Boston Celtics and said, you struggled with a team that naturally struggles offensively. What am I to take from that? And when I say struggle, it doesn't mean that you struggled stopping them as in getting defensive stops, but you struggled beating them because you had trouble scoring. So if you were stopping them, your defense was effective and your scoring was just barely getting over the top and their scoring wasn't doing nothing either way, then that tells me that the Golden State Warriors may, in theory, have success against your defense enough to where you won't be able to outscore them and you will have trouble winning the series. And that concerns me about this series for the Boston Celtics. If Jason Tatum has the 4 for 18 game, that's a loss probably, unless they can find that scoring somewhere else. Jordan Poole's going to be acting up. Wiggins is going to be acting up. Steph, Clay acting up. All of those guys are going to be scoring. That's not to account for any role-playing scorers. Kuminga, if he decides to come in, get 15 points. Moody, who they decided to throw on the floor a little bit, now is seeing some shots fall. Otto Porter Jr. can string together some threes, things like that. I like what the Celtics can do because Marcus Smart has been attacking offensively. Grant Williams, even though his offense is sporadic, he's more than capable of being a hero when you need him to. He's already proven that, hitting 7 or 8 threes in a game necessary against the Bucks, I believe it was. So they can find it if they need to, but they will need to all the time, and that is also something that I'm not sure is true depending on how effective their defense will be. Because if their defense is overly effective, as I see them to be, then maybe that will translate to them actually stopping the Golden State Warriors in some ways, or at least slowing them down. Now, stopping, I say with reluctance to kind of point out that there's no stopping Steph Curry. If you do understand that he's going to hit shots no matter what, especially if he gets in a certain type of rhythm, he can pull up from 50 feet if he needs to. I think the key for the Boston Celtics is most definitely perimeter defense. It's the Warriors, man. But understand this. What has gotten the Warriors here and what the Warriors need not forget is that they have done a very, very good job at, while having a three-point shooting identity, not falling in love with the three-point shot. They shoot it sparingly, believe it or not. They attack the inside. They appreciate rebounding, and that's the meat and potatoes of the Golden State Warriors this season. They also do, of course, move the ball a lot. Draymond Green, Steph Curry, Jordan Poole, they all can make assists. They make plays for one another. Kevon Looney, excellent passer. He does that well, and that is something the Boston Celtics better pay attention to. Do not underestimate the playmaking of Kevon Looney. If you crowd him out or you put too much pressure on him for any reason at all, he will make the right pass and that bucket's going in. Remember I said that. He's just like Draymond in that way. So, all in all, I expect both teams to be very, very active working with one another. These are two of the best coaches you will find. Steve Kerr, Ime Udoka, rookie coach who found himself in the finals in his first season. He outdueled some of the best coaches in the game in these playoffs. Some of the most legendary stuff you've ever seen out of a coach in his rookie season. Ime Udoka, I can't say enough about what he's done in these playoffs. But now he's got to find a way to stop the impossible, and that is the avalanche that is the Golden State Warriors. This is a dynasty. They have had, 5 NBA Finals appearances? I don't know. I lost count. 3 NBA championships. KD, no KD. 73 win seasons. This is not new to them. The Boston Celtics have never been here. Al Horford has played more NBA playoff games than any other player who's never been to the finals. Congratulations to him. I could not be more pleased to see him in this position. Marcus Smart, Defensive Player of the Year, never been to the finals. They've been to the Eastern Conference Finals, but finally got over the hump. The Golden State Warriors live here. This is what they do. Do they have some players that have never been here? Yes. Andrew Wiggins has never been here. Of course, the young players, Poole and, Kuminga and those guys, they've never been here. I don't know if that's going to hurt them or help them, but I do know they got some guys with them. Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry. They know what it takes. And that's why I challenge them to stop playing with their dang food. When it's time to close teams out, close them out. If you have a situation where the Boston Celtics are going on scoring droughts, you need to be hitting haymakers. That's when you need to be lighting them up. Silencing their crowd if you're on the road, lighting your crowd up if you're at home. The Golden State Warriors must take advantage of the momentum, because the Boston Celtics are not fazed by momentum from what I've seen. Jason Tatum, guys like Derek White, Marcus Smart, they make plays in those situations. Your crowd could be going crazy. They're going to silence you. And that's what I like about Jason Tatum. He's really good at that. You got to pay attention to, obviously, Grant Williams on the defensive end. He's so very important. He's going to make problems for anybody trying to get into the paint. He's going to make problems for anybody on the perimeter. He is key, obviously, for the Boston Celtics on the defensive end. But what we cannot have in this particular series, Grant, is you not scoring. You got away with it in Miami. You got away with it in the Bucks. And in certain situations, they called on you, and you came through each and every time. That must continue, Grant. That cannot slow down. When you go into these situations where you be having these 0 for 3 games and you just only play defense, that only works when the other team has trouble scoring. That is not going to work when you're going up against the Golden State Warriors and they're having a hot night, man. If it's a night like Klay's going for 35 and Klay got, Jordan Poole has 20, Wiggins going for 22, Steph got 30, you need to score. If Jaylen Brown can't go for 20, they're going to need 35 out of Jaylen. It's just like that. So I believe in the Boston Celtics as it pertains to, if I call on those guys, they're going to deliver what I need in those moments. They have shown me that all playoffs long, even though they have these scoring droughts, even though they've struggled with a Miami Heat team who I could argue should not have been able to make it through 5 games in that series. They still manage to come through, make adjustments, and find ways to win games. That game 7 was really, really tough because they were going up against a team that was mentally just impossible. A team that was climbing a mountaintop and was relentless. And if Jimmy Butler hits a shot, who knows if they're even here. The Boston Celtics also play with their food. That's what I'm here to tell you. They played with their food in Miami. They should have closed Miami out in a game 6 at home, and they were blessed by the Angels that Jimmy Butler missed that 3-point shot. That's why the Boston Celtics ultimately found themselves with the ability to play the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals. So, as I look at this situation, I obviously say, all right, both teams are good at just about every element of basketball. I expect them both to play together. I expect them both to crash the glass and see the fruit and crash in the glass. Boston did better. Golden State definitely will. I expect Boston to hit good threes. I expect, them to take the 3-point shot, in a way that is balanced with what it is they need to do in the inside. But if they don't attack that inside against the Golden State Warriors, if they only shoot threes and get into a 3-point shooting contest, of course, I don't think they can even stay in that game, let alone win it. What I'm hopeful will not happen is a bunch of blowouts. We've seen a lot of that in these playoffs, especially in the Eastern Conference Finals and the Western Conference Finals. And I look at these two teams and I say their styles are very different, but they both have extremely tough players on both sides, extremely lethal superstars on both sides. I think the Golden State Warriors have a lot more offensive talent than the Boston Celtics. A lot more. When you consider what Klay, Steph, Draymond in terms of playmaking, Wiggins, what he does, what Kevon Looney does on the glass and putbacks and things of that nature. He can also hit a set 3-point shot, which people need not forget. Don't leave Kevon out there by himself. Don't think he won't shoot it. He will. Those are the type of things. And, look at a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, I think is a guy who's going to get a lot of easy buckets in his career. They have a ton of offensive talent. Otto Porter Jr., you can't leave him alone. You know what I mean? There's no guarantee he won't hit 3 threes or 4 threes in a game. So the Boston Celtics, like I said, they have their scoring droughts, man. Sometimes Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they go cold together. Sometimes Marcus Smart will go 4 for 15. As I said, Grant's his scoring droughts. Time Lord, he can tend to disappear offensively. They just need that to not happen. Al Horford's 3-point shooting woes, all of that needs to cease. It's not going to work. This is not the Heat. I'm just telling you right now, the Golden State Warriors are not the Heat. They're going to play defense, and they're not going to struggle from behind the arc. So that's what it is. Boston's tough, man. They can win this series. I'm not going to rule them out. Not by any stretch of the imagination. As I break this situation down and I look at these two teams, I think Derek White's very important. Peyton Pritchard's 3-point shooting is important. He needs to be able to hit those shots when they call his name. On the Golden State Warriors side of things, it's so very, very important that Steph Curry take care of the basketball down the stretch of the basketball games. We know in the past, in the finals, playoffs, he tends to turn the ball over down the stretch, man. Like weird ways. He has done this repeatedly. He has yet to get a Finals MVP. He needs one of those in his arsenal, man. He needs a Finals MVP in his arsenal. A lot of people are saying this is a legacy series for him. People want to throw him ahead of some of the great names that he's not yet ahead of. If he were to win this series, he may be able to do that. I think that's in his mind, and I think not being a gunslinger all the damn time, and kind of just being a little more patient, a little more poised, a little more serious about possessions, from possession to possession. I think he'll be happy with the results, man. Sometimes it's just like you get in these pressured moments, all the pressure's on you, and it's just like, let me just play loose. That's what I think he does. It's just like, you know what? It's like the opposite of what a lot of people do when they play tight. It's like he initiates playing loose, and sometimes he makes mistakes in doing so. So it's like it's okay to just be in the moment and not try to force the issue. And I know, like Draymond has mentioned and several others, the way their offense works is they tend to do things rhythmically. So if a guy's out of position or if he's a step slow, the ball's going to fly out of bounds. And I understand that. But I'm talking about the carelessness, right? Just the carelessness that Steph particularly tends to play with in pressured moments. That needs to not rear its ugly head in this series. A guy like Marcus Smart will take advantage of that, and you will lose because of it. It's simple as that. You can't do it against them. So, man, Jason Tatum is a special player, man. And it's going to take a very high level for him to win this series. And what scares me as a Laker fan is that I think he can actually reach that level. I really do. I think he's capable of that. But what I also think Jason's capable of is making mistakes. He can tend to go on these scoring droughts, bricking shots, But the key for Jason Tatum is always remembering that there are other angles and in multiple places that his ability will allow him to attack from. And I always say that about him. If he just learns to love every single inch of the court as it pertains to shooting it, I think he can hit every shot there is. I don't think there's a single shot on the court that he can't master, but he just needs to continue to venture out and do so. because that's his key, man. He tends to fall in love with certain spots, and he only wants to attack from those spots. And when that happens, when those shots don't fall, he tends to overshoot to overcompensate for the lack of shooting. And I think in those moments, what he's able to do is make plays. Instead of forcing it, he's able to. All right, let me see if I can find Derek White. Let me see if I can find Al Horford in the corner. Let me see if I can get it over to Grant Williams in the corner. Let me get it to Jaylen Brown for an attack. That is a very, very, very easy way for domination from a player like Jason Tatum. He can dominate a game by himself, but he has to continue to attack in multiple ways because he's an all-around player. He don't have to just shoot from one spot. He don't have to just drive. He don't have to just do anything. Jason Tatum can master the game of basketball and be one of the greatest players to ever play because there's nothing, literally nothing, that he cannot do. And that's what I've learned to understand. But it's just about what he chooses to do and not getting so caught up in trying to do one thing. Score, okay. Rebound now. All right. Let's play the defensive side. Let's get some steals. Mix it up so that the Warriors can't ever figure out what the heck to expect from Jason Tatum. If Ime Udoka continues to drill that into the team and make all of his players as unpredictable as possible, Boston gonna run away with this thing. They'll run away with it. Because what I know about the Golden State Warriors is even though they are attacking, they're an excellent team. What I do worry about with them, especially going up against a tough team like this, is they're a little older. This time of year, sometimes guys just start getting gassed. And that's what I worry about in regards to the Golden State Warriors. Now, I haven't seen them getting gassed. And for all I know, it could be the opposite effect. Maybe it's the Boston Celtics that just run out of gas. But sometimes around this time of year, old guys tend to just get tired, man. Like, it ain't even that deep. It's just fatigue takes over. Now they don't move just as quick laterally. Now they're not going after 50-50 balls the same. It's going to be upon Steve Kerr to keep those young guys in heavy rotation and to look for that. Look to see if guys are hitting a physical wall. If they don't hit it, cool. But what I think the Golden State Warriors have the luxury of is that they're not an old team. They just have older stars. But they don't have to rely on those guys at all. And I think that's why they're so healthy at this stage. So I'm looking for that. They have enough young players. They should be able to rely upon them to make that not a thing. But I put it out there just so you guys know that's real. Fatigue is real for both teams. Injuries obviously are real for both teams, but it seems like the Boston Celtics are bionic, man. I don't know. They're made out of something else. I watched Marcus Smart twist his whole ankle and come back and play just as fine the next game. So I don't know. You know, that team. Time Lord has had injury issues all series long. He's been able to play through them. I do wonder where he's at with his conditioning right now because obviously going up against Draymond Green and Kevon Looney, he's going to be very important. The battle of the bigs is a real thing in this series, y'all. Neither one of these teams are small teams at all. With what they're able to put on the floor. Daniel Tice, I haven't mentioned him, but he's very, very important, especially for foul trouble reasons. I think that's another thing. Foul trouble, you got to pay attention to who's going to be drawing what fouls. A lot of these teams play on the perimeter, so 3-point plays, 4-point plays, that kind of thing. How smart both teams play the perimeter, how consistent they both play the perimeter, I think is something that could be very important. And I look at the Boston Celtics, I say they take care of the ball not so great their dang selves. They're known for turning the ball over. And Golden State is a very good defensive team, so expect a lot of turnovers from both teams, maybe an exaggerated amount even, given the fact how good these teams are defensively and how they turn the ball over. Jaylen Brown had his turnover issues in this series. Wow. And also you've seen that Jaylen Brown also has turned the ball over quite a bit. Jason Tatum, I should have said, with 7 in the game 6 that he had lost. So, yeah, keep an eye on that, transition points, things of that nature. I think that's going to play a big part in this series. Yeah, man. Yeah, this is great. I think this is going to be a fantastic NBA Finals. There's so many different factors that play into the style of plays, adjustments that you just know are going to come from game to game. But I think that rebounding is a very, 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 very key component to who's going to hoist the trophy at the end of this thing, man. Rebounding. Kevon Looney, if he's averaging like 15 rebounds in this series, and the Boston Celtics are only getting like 5 rebounds out of Williams, 8 rebounds out of the other Williams, like Horford maybe only tips in 8. I think that could be the problem. Like, that could honestly be the problem. Because if you give the Golden State Warriors extra possessions, those are threes, man. Those are splash brother attempts. You don't need that. You know, you need 40-point games from Jason Tatum and 35-point games from Jaylen Brown to win games like that. You need Marcus Smart to contribute over 25 points to win that particular game. You can't win that game 4 times against the Warriors. That's what I'm saying to you. That style, they can't win that way. So it's gonna be very important for the Boston Celtics to win that rebound total, have more possessions than the Golden State Warriors, take care of the basketball. Can't stress that enough. But also control the pace. Pace. The Golden State Warriors like to play at a nice pace, but they're more than capable of playing in the half court, especially if Kevon and Draymond are down there controlling things. They can do that just fine. The Boston Celtics half court offense is cool. Like, they're capable of hitting shots, but the problem that I see with them is if they're not attacking and they're settling for jump shots, it could be a brick situation for them. It can be a situation where they go on 6-7 shot scoring droughts, 8 shot scoring droughts. That doesn't work against Golden State Warriors. That's you will turn a 5-point lead into a 7-point deficit immediately doing that. Like, immediately. So it's going to be on guys like Derek White to be efficient, Marcus Smart to continue to be efficient, and just balance out. This is what I noticed the Miami Heat did against the Boston Celtics. They exerted so much energy on the defensive end to when it was time to hit certain 3-point shots, they weren't able to hit them. Now, for the younger guys, that's not as much a thing because your legs are going to be younger. They're going to be able to be more active. But I'll let that go by. It's an active day out here. All right. But guys like Al Horford, Otto Porter, and I'm looking at both sides here, those guys need to be very, very mindful of how much they're exerting themselves on the defensive end so that when they attempt certain 3-point shots, those shots can be good. You see what I'm saying? Because there is a correlation that has been seen time and time again throughout all time and space in basketball, that when you play so well on the defensive end, you're exerting so much, your legs are tired and you're going to break shots. That's just what it is. It takes special conditioning to be able to just keep up with the NBA game the way defense is supposed to be played, and then have enough to be able to lift and do that thing that you do. So I look at that and I say, I wonder if that's going to affect these players in this series. I wonder if the older guys are going to get into a space where they go 1 for 6 from behind the arc, just like Al Horford did in this last series, because he's doing so much trying to keep up with the Draymonds and the Kumingas, etc. So, yeah, I've been talking for 38 minutes. I can't believe it. But this is a series where, you know, for all the marbles and it's so many different components, I think ultimately that this could really be a 7-game series if the Boston Celtics are able to keep up scoring with the Golden State Warriors. This could be a sweep if the Boston Celtics have problems scoring with the Golden State Warriors, because the Splash Brothers from game to game to game are going to hit haymakers, man. They're going to, whether your defense is good or bad, they have the ability to erase scoring deficits in moments. You can have a 10-point lead and it can be gone in a matter of a 2-minute span with the Golden State Warriors. Jordan Poole, Wiggins, Steph, Clay, they erase leads. So you can't go on scoring droughts. You can't be bad in some of the key components. Your window and margin for error is zilch, basically, if you're the Boston Celtics. You have no margin for error. You take care of the basketball. You play the defense that you're comfortable playing, which is the best defense there is. And you take quality, unpredictable shots. That will win the Boston Celtics the NBA championship. The Golden State Warriors, take care of the basketball. Keep your foot on the gas. Play as loose as you do, but do not be careless with the basketball. continue to rebound the basketball the way you have been in every series. Make sure you keep an eye on Jaylen Brown's dribble penetration and have some control over that. Continue to control attacking the interior paint, because when the Golden State Warriors score more interior buckets than the other team, they usually win. Falling in love with the three-point shot for the best three-point shooting team ever is a bad thing this year. If they temper those, I think they'll feel good about their results at winning a championship this season as well. So I don't know what about a prediction in this series. After 40 minutes of talking about it, as you can see, it's so many different things, and I think I can keep on going for another 40. I could pick up other things as well. I really can. When I talk about Jordan Poole and how he's going to affect this series, if he plays well or if he plays poorly, I don't think they can afford for him to have a bad series or a quiet series. Jordan Poole needs to get loud right now. Seriously. Because he's been a little too quiet for my liking, and against the Boston Celtics that plays tough defense, I think they're going to hound the hell out of him. So if he has a bad series, this is bad for the Golden State Warriors. I really believe that. They have a lot of attacking weapons, but they need him and his young legs to be active and just tough. He needs to be really, really, really sharp in this series, in my opinion. So, and I don't know. Their defense is tough as hell. So, yeah, if I'm going to predict anything, man, I feel better if I could wait a couple games to make a prediction. But I'm just going to say this and let it be. I believe the Golden State Warriors will ultimately win this game 7. If it goes 7 games, I'm going to take the Warriors in 7 games. And we're going to see how these two teams, pan out. I'm going to put an asterisk next to my 7 Warrior prediction, because there are certain components about this series, injuries, adjustments, things of that nature, different tendencies that may start up. Guys can get cold, hot, whatever. That will determine how I really view the series. But because everybody wants a prediction, Warriors in 7, I'll leave it at that. So, I thank you guys for rocking with me, man. This is the longest video I think I've ever done. But I'm going to have a passion for these playoffs. I have so much information in my head based on everything I've seen. And I think this is going to be one of those series where you really don't know what's going to happen from game to game. You know what I mean? You really, you can make a prediction, but the way these two teams potentially play once against one another, there's so many different ways that they can attack one another. There's so many different things that the Warriors can do to the Celtics, that the Celtics can do to the Warriors, and they can adjust. So it's about the choices the coaches make. It's about those choices. If they make the right choices, I promise you'll see the result made that you want to see if you're the winning team. Fan base. If the adjustments are made just right, you'll see them do just fine. So that's really what I have to say, man. Warriors in 7. It's been loud around my way. I appreciate y'all for walking with me. BDL44. I'm out.